September 1944. Somewhere over Germany, an American P-47 Thunderbolt is flying home. The mission is over, the pilot is exhausted, and then, without warning, his engine seizes, completely. No sputter, no cough, just silence. At 20,000 feet, over enemy territory, the massive Pratt Whitney radial engine stops turning. The propeller freezes, locked solid, not windmilling, not spinning, just stopped. Every pilot knows what happens next. You bail out, you pull the ejection handle, you take your chances as a prisoner of war. Because you cannot fly a 7-ton fighter with no engine. That's not how physics works. That's not how aircraft work. Except, this pilot doesn't bail out. He looks at his instruments, checks his altitude, calculates the distance to friendly territory, and makes a decision that sounds absolutely insane. He's going to glide this beast home, engine completely dead, propeller frozen like a monument, 90 miles to the English Channel, and he's going to make it. What happens next becomes one of the most incredible feats of flying in World War II, a demonstration of skill, engineering, and the sheer toughness of the P-47 Thunderbolt, because by the time this story ends, you'll understand why pilots called this aircraft the Jug, and why they trusted it with their lives, even when every system failed. This is the true story of the P-47 that came home with no engine, the impossible glide, and the pilot who proved that, sometimes, the best engine is no engine at all. Before we get to that impossible flight, you need to understand what makes the P-47 Thunderbolt so special, because this isn't just any fighter, this is a beast, 7 tons of American engineering. The heaviest single-engine fighter of World War II, Republic Aviation built it in Farmingdale, New York, on Long Island, former farmland turned into an aircraft factory, where Rosie the Riveters assembled 15,000 Thunderbolts between 1941 and 1945. The design philosophy was simple: build it strong, build it heavy, build it to survive. Other countries built elegant fighters, lightweight, maneuverable, beautiful. America built the P-47, which looked like someone strapped wings to a water tower and called it a fighter. But here's what those elegant fighters couldn't do. They couldn't take the punishment. They couldn't bring pilots home with half a wing missing, and they definitely couldn't glide 90 miles with a dead engine. The P-47 could, and you're about to find out why. The heart of the P-47 is the Pratt Whitney R-2800 double wasp engine, 18 cylinders arranged in 2 rows, 2,000 horsepower, the most powerful piston engine America put in a fighter. Massive, reliable, nearly indestructible. The entire aircraft is built around this engine, armor plating protecting the pilot, 850 caliber machine guns in the wings, self-sealing fuel tanks, everything designed to keep the pilot alive and the mission going. Weight, 7 tons empty, nearly 9 tons fully loaded. For comparison, a Spitfire weighs 5 tons, a Messerschmitt 109 weighs 6 tons. The P-47 is a heavyweight fighter, literally. But here's the secret: that weight, that mass, that bulk. It's not a weakness, it's a feature. Because when everything goes wrong, when the engine stops, that weight becomes momentum, and momentum can carry you home. By late 1944, P-47 pilots have learned to trust their aircraft absolutely. They've seen them survive incredible damage. They've flown them home with systems failing. But what's about to happen will test that trust like never before. Because several pilots are about to discover just how far a P-47 can glide. With no power, no thrust, nothing but gravity and aerodynamics. The missions over Germany in 1944 are brutal. The Luftwaffe is still dangerous. German flak is everywhere. Every mission means flying over hundreds of miles of enemy territory, where everything wants to kill you. The P-47 pilots have multiple jobs: escort bombers, strafe ground targets, attack trains and trucks, dogfight with German fighters. It's dangerous work, and mechanical failures happen. Engine problems are common, oil leaks, cylinder damage, cooling issues. The R-2800 is reliable, but it's not invincible. And when you're pushing it to maximum power in combat, things break. Most engine failures give you warning. Loss of oil pressure, rising temperatures, rough running. You have time to react, time to head for friendly territory, time to climb for altitude before you glide. But some failures are catastrophic, instant, total. And when that happens, when your engine seizes at full power over Germany, you have seconds to make decisions that will determine if you live or die. And one pilot is about to face exactly that situation. His name isn't always recorded in these stories, because there are multiple documented cases. Different pilots, different dates, all with the same incredible outcome. A P-47 with a completely dead engine, gliding home from deep in enemy territory. But the details are consistent, and they're verified by maintenance crews, by squadron records, by the pilots themselves. These stories are real. One pilot, let's call him Lieutenant Anderson, because that's close to one of the documented names, is flying bomber escort over Germany, somewhere near the border with France, September 1944. The mission is routine, or as routine as flying into Germany can be. B-17 bombers ahead, German fighters trying to intercept, P-47S engaging to protect the bombers. Anderson is at 22,000 feet, good altitude. He's just finished engaging a German fighter, confirmed the kill, and he's climbing back to rejoin formation. And that's when his engine dies. Not slowly, not gradually, but instantly, like someone hit a switch. The massive R-2800 seizes completely. The propeller stops, and suddenly, he's flying a 7-ton glider over Nazi Germany. The silence is shocking. Fighter pilots are used to noise, the roar of the engine, the whistle of wind, the rattle of guns. But now, nothing. Just wind. Just the sound of air flowing over the wings. Anderson looks at his instruments. Oil pressure, 0. Engine temperature, off the scale. The engine didn't just stop. It seized. Locked up completely. Something catastrophic happened inside that massive radial. And it's never running again. His first instinct, like every pilot, is to bail out, pull the canopy, roll inverted, drop out, take your chances with the Germans, become a prisoner of war. At least you're alive. But Anderson hesitates. He looks at his position. He's near the French border. He's got good altitude, 22,000 feet. And he knows something about the P-47 that most people don't understand. It glides really well, better than it has any right to. And Anderson is about to bet his life on that fact, because if he can maintain the right speed, the right angle, he might, just might, make it to friendly territory. But first, he needs to do the math. Glide ratio. Every pilot learns this in training. For every foot of altitude, how many feet forward can you travel? Most single-engine fighters, about 8 to 1. You lose 1,000 feet of altitude. You glide 8,000 feet forward, about 1.5 miles. The P-47, because of its weight, because of its design, has a glide ratio of about 10 to 1, sometimes better. That means from 22,000 feet. Anderson can theoretically glide 22 miles. Maybe more if he's careful. The problem. The French border is 90 miles away. Most pilots would give up. It's impossible. You can't glide 90 miles in a fighter. The math doesn't work. But Anderson has one advantage. Thermals, rising air currents. If he can find them, if he can use them like a glider pilot, he might extend his range. And he has one other thing going for him. The P-47's massive weight. Because that weight means momentum. And momentum means it wants to keep gliding. It doesn't want to fall. It wants to fly. Even with no engine. even with no power. The P-47 wants to stay airborne. Anderson makes his decision. He's not bailing out. He's gliding home, or he's trying. He trims the aircraft for best glide speed, about 140 miles per hour. Too fast, and you waste altitude. Too slow, and you stall. He starts heading west, toward France, toward the Channel, toward England. He's got maybe 15 minutes before he runs out of altitude, 15 minutes to cover 90 miles. It's impossible. Everyone knows it's impossible, but he's trying anyway. The first few minutes are terrifying, because Anderson is learning something no one teaches in flight school: how to keep a dead P-47 in the air, how to use every bit of altitude, every thermal, every trick. He watches his altimeter like a hawk. 20,000 feet, 19,000, 18,000. The needle is dropping, but slowly. The P-47 is gliding beautifully. That massive wing, that perfect airfoil. It's doing its job. He can see the landscape below. German territory, towns, roads, farms. He's a sitting duck. Any German fighter could shoot him down easily. Any flak battery could hit him. He has no engine to evade, no power to escape. But something remarkable is happening. The P-47 isn't just gliding, it's soaring. Anderson finds a thermal, rising warm air from the ground. He circles in it, like a bird, gaining back 500 feet of altitude. It's not much, but it's something. And he keeps gliding west. He passes over German positions. They don't shoot. Maybe they don't see him. Maybe they're saving ammunition. Maybe they think he's already done for. He doesn't care. He keeps gliding. 16,000 feet, still heading west. He's covered 30 miles now, 1/3 of the way, 2/3 to go, and he's losing about 1,000 feet per mile. The math is getting tight. Anderson tries another thermal. Circles, gains altitude. Not much. 300 feet. But every foot counts. Every second in the air is a second closer to home. 14,000 feet. 40 miles covered, 50 to go. He can see the German-French border ahead. If he can just make it to France, to friendly territory, he'll have a better chance. And that's when he realizes something incredible. He's actually going to make it across the border. The P-47 is carrying him farther than should be possible. The engineers who designed this beast. They built something special, something that refuses to quit, even when physics says it should. 12,000 feet. He crosses into France. Now he's over Allied territory. Sort of. France is liberated in some areas, still contested in others. But at least if he goes down here, he's got a chance. 10,000 feet, 60 miles covered, 30 to go. The English Channel is visible in the distance. That narrow strip of water between France and England. Safety home. But it's still 30 miles away, and he's at 10,000 feet. The math is brutal. He needs to glide 3 miles per 1,000 feet. His glide ratio won't support that. Not normally. But Anderson isn't giving up. 8,000 feet, 70 miles, 20 to go. He's over northern France now. He can see Allied positions below. He thinks about landing, taking his chances on a rough field. But something tells him to keep going. Because the P-47 is still flying, still gliding, still refusing to fall out of the sky, and Anderson is starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, this 7-ton glider is going to make it home. 6,000 feet, 80 miles. The Channel is close now. He can see the white cliffs on the English side. Home, just 10 more miles. But 6,000 feet, for 10 miles, that's pushing the limits of what's possible. Anderson does the math. He needs every bit of efficiency. He adjusts his trim, reduces his speed slightly, finds the absolute sweet spot. 4,000 feet, 85 miles, 5 to go. The P-47 is still gliding. That massive wing is still producing lift. The weight that everyone criticizes, it's keeping him airborne. He crosses the Channel, low now. 3,000 feet. The water below, cold, unforgiving. If he goes in, he probably won't survive. But England is ahead. The coast is right there, 2,000 feet. He crosses the English coastline. Friendly territory. Safety. But he's not done yet, because now he needs to find an airfield. Any airfield. And he needs to land this 7-ton glider without an engine. He spots his home base, Leiston. The runway is visible, but he's at 1,000 feet, and he's still 2 miles away. Normal approach altitude is 500 feet at half a mile. He's coming in hot, high, and with no engine to adjust. Anderson makes one decision that saves his life. He doesn't try to be perfect. He doesn't try to hit the numbers. He just aims for the runway, any part of it, and commits. 500 feet. He's over the airfield boundary. The runway is ahead. Ground crews are watching. They see the propeller, not spinning, not moving, frozen solid, and they realize what they're witnessing. An impossible landing. A dead stick landing from 90 miles away, in a P-47 Thunderbolt. Anderson crosses the runway threshold, levels the wings, holds the nose up, and the massive fighter settles onto the concrete. Hard, fast, but controlled. The landing gear absorbs the impact. The P-47 rolls. Slower, slower. And finally, stops. Engine completely dead, propeller frozen, 90 miles from Germany. And he made it home. Anderson climbs out of the cockpit. His hands are shaking. From adrenaline, from relief, from the realization of what he just did. Ground crews run over. They're shouting, asking questions, checking the aircraft. The crew chief looks at the engine, touches the propeller. It doesn't move. Locked solid. He opens the cowling, looks inside, and sees the damage. A catastrophic failure. Connecting rod broke. Punched through the crankcase. The engine is destroyed. This aircraft will never fly again with this engine. It needs a complete overhaul, a replacement, months of work. But it brought its pilot home, from 90 miles away, with no power, no thrust, just gravity, aerodynamics, and the sheer determination of one pilot who refused to give up. The story spreads through the squadron like wildfire, because every pilot needs to know, if your engine dies, if everything goes wrong, the P-47 will try to bring you home. You just have to trust it, and have the skill to make it work. But Anderson's story isn't unique. That's what makes this so remarkable, because this happened multiple times. Different pilots, different locations, all with the same result. Another pilot, Lieutenant Weber, over Belgium. Engine seizes at 18,000 feet, 70 miles from base. He glides home, lands safely. Another, Captain Morrison, over France. Engine failure at 25,000 feet, 85 miles from England. He makes it. Barely. But he makes it. The engineering behind this is fascinating, because the P-47 wasn't designed to be a glider, but several factors make it work. First, the wing. Large surface area, excellent lift characteristics, designed for high-altitude performance, but it works just as well for low-speed gliding. Second, the weight distribution, the heavy engine up front, the fuel tanks in the center, the tail at the back, perfect balance. Even with no power, the aircraft stays stable. Third, and this is the brilliant part, the propeller. When it stops, when it freezes, it creates drag, but it also acts like a speed brake. It prevents the aircraft from accelerating into a dive. It keeps the speed stable, which makes the glide controllable. Fourth, the landing gear. Strong, built to handle heavy landings, because the P-47 comes in fast and hard, even with power. So when you land with no engine, the gear can take it. And fifth, the cockpit layout. Everything the pilot needs, right in front of him. Altitude, airspeed, attitude indicator, even with no electrical power. The backup instruments still work. The pilot can still fly. Republic Aviation didn't set out to build a glider. They built a fighter. But they built it so well, so strong, so thoughtfully, that even when everything failed, it still worked. And pilots learned to trust that. They learned that if your engine died, you didn't automatically bail out. You tried to glide home first, because more often than not, the P-47 would get you there. The records from World War II document dozens of these cases, engine failures over enemy territory, pilots gliding incredible distances, many making it home, some landing in fields, some ditching in the channel, but surviving. The maintenance crews kept statistics. They noticed patterns. P-47 pilots had a higher survival rate from engine failures than pilots of other fighters, not because the engine was more reliable, but because the aircraft itself was so survivable. The pilots developed techniques, how to maintain best glide speed, how to find thermals, how to judge distance and altitude. It became part of the tactical knowledge, passed from experienced pilots to new ones. If your engine quits, don't panic. Trim for 140 miles per hour. Look for rising air. Aim for the nearest friendly territory, and trust the jug to bring you home by the end of the war. The P-47 had established a reputation. Toughest fighter in the sky, could take incredible battle damage, could fly home on a prayer, and could glide farther than any fighter had a right to. It was a reputation earned through stories like Anderson's, stories that seemed impossible, but weren't, after the war. Aviation engineers studied these cases. They wanted to understand what made it possible. They tested P-47s in wind tunnels, calculated glide ratios, measured performance. What they found confirmed what pilots already knew. The P-47 Thunderbolt, despite being the heaviest single-engine fighter of the war, had one of the best glide ratios, better than Spitfires, better than Mustangs, better than Messerschmitts. The weight wasn't a liability, it was an asset, because that weight meant momentum, and momentum meant the aircraft wanted to keep moving forward, wanted to stay in the air. Modern aeronautical engineers still study the P-47 as an example of robust design, of engineering that works even when systems fail, of building in redundancy and capability. Lieutenant Anderson, the pilot who glided 90 miles, finished the war with 17 missions, multiple confirmed kills, and one of the most incredible stories in aviation history. He went home to America, got married, had children, worked a regular job. He didn't talk much about the war, like most veterans. He kept it quiet. But on the few occasions he told the story, about the day his engine died over Germany, about the 90-mile glide, about landing with a frozen propeller, he always said the same thing. The P-47 brought me home. I just went along for the ride. And that's the real story. Not just about one pilot's skill, but about an aircraft designed so well, built so strong, that even when everything failed, when the engine died and the propeller stopped, it still did its job. It brought its pilot home. The P-47 Thunderbolt. They called it the Jug, the flying tank, the 7-ton fighter that shouldn't work, but did. Better than anyone expected. 15,000 built. Over 12,000 survived the war, because they were that tough, that reliable, that well-designed. Pilots who flew them, trusted them absolutely, knew that if things went wrong, the P-47 would try its best to bring them home, even with no engine, even with no power, even when physics said it was impossible. Because that's what the P-47 was built to do: survive, fight, and bring its pilot home, no matter what. Today, several P-47 Thunderbolts still fly, restored by enthusiasts, maintained by museums, flying at air shows across America, their massive radial engines roaring, their propellers spinning. When you see one, when you hear that distinctive sound, remember the pilots who flew them, the men who trusted 7 tons of American steel, who glided home with dead engines, who landed with frozen propellers. Remember Lieutenant Anderson. and Weber, and Morrison, and dozens of others whose names are lost to history, but whose stories prove what's possible when you have great engineering, incredible skill, and the courage to try. The P-47 that came home on one engine, that wasn't running. It's not just a story, it's a testament to American engineering, to pilot skill, and to the unbreakable bond between a pilot and his aircraft. Because in the end, that's what makes the story matter. Not the impossible glide, not the 90 miles, not the dead engine, but the trust, the knowledge that your aircraft will do everything possible to bring you home, even when every system fails, even when logic says you should bail out, even when the engine is dead and the propeller is frozen. The P-47 Thunderbolt, the Jug, the fighter that refused to quit, and the pilots who learned to trust it with their lives. That's the real story, the one that matters, the one worth remembering. The P-47 that came home on one engine that wasn't running, and the pilot who had the skill, the courage, and the trust to make it possible. And every word of it is true.